Over 70% of the mobile devices, including mine, are running Android OS. But Android OS is not perfect right now. In fact, there are 3 things that iOS is just doing better and Android needs to improve those things. The first thing is the software optimization. Have you ever felt like your phone feels slow even though you have a lot of RAM and the high-end processor? Or has it ever happened to you that you were just using normal applications but your phone started overheating? Or has it ever happened to you that you were just playing a game or maybe using Instagram and all of a sudden your phone became unresponsive and then you had to restart it and it was fixed? Or maybe you have been facing a lot of application issues where your apps are just crashing and then you have to send report to the OS. Well, all of that can be categorized under software optimization problem. In simpler terms, Google needs to make Android more smooth, fast, reliable, and more hardware efficient, just like iOS. If you think about it, if you pick an iPhone 6 or an iPhone 11 and if you use them, the usage will be pretty much the same, even though the spec difference between these 2 devices is enormous. The reason is iOS. iOS is so highly optimized that even if you are using an older iPhone or a newer iPhone, you will not feel a difference. Now, I understand that a part of the reason is that for iOS, we only have a single type of hardware available, that is the Apple Silicon. And for Android, we have multiple companies selling Android devices that are using all sorts of hardware. And Google cannot just optimize Android for each of the processors like Qualcomm and Kirin and Exynos. Plus, these companies are just putting a lot of bloatware like the UI skin and different applications before they are selling these devices to you. And that brings me to the second thing that Android needs to improve: the bloatware. All of these companies like Samsung and Xiaomi and Huawei, Oppo, OnePlus, they are not using the stock Android operating system. They are getting the stock Android from Google, and then on top of that, they are putting their own applications, their own UI skin, which actually reduces the performance of Android. And the reason why sometimes your phone feels slow or it overheats is because some of these bloatware applications are running in the background. You cannot stop them, you cannot delete them, and they are just there consuming your memory and your battery as well. So what Google needs to do is limit these companies as to how much they can modify the Android OS, because ultimately it's just affecting their customer base, which is bad for business. And since we are talking about the restrictions and the boundaries that Google needs to apply, that brings me to the third point. Google not only needs to limit the companies, but it also needs to put some restrictions on the user as well. If you think about it, iOS does not provide as much flexibility to the user as Android does. And all of that in returns makes Android a slow performer as well as vulnerable to malware and virus attacks, because the users can install external UI launchers, external APKs. A user can go into developer options, change some of the OS settings as well. And that is actually bad for Android in reality. So I'm not saying that Android should be a black box like iOS, but it should put some restrictions as to how much the users can also modify the Android OS. Now, I admit that the hardware is equally important as the software, and these chipsets like Qualcomm and Kirin and Exynos are not as capable as Apple's silicon chipsets. But I've got a good news for you. IBM and Samsung have developed a new processor that will just wipe every other processor off the market. Click this video to see what I'm talking about. All right, I'll see you next week.